Hi, Michelle.
Hello, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. Yourself?
Okay.
Do you have any questions before tonight's meeting I might be able to help with, or anything to clarify?
I just noticed that the full board packet's not on the website, so are you planning on not providing that anymore? I don't see your report either, but I don't know, maybe I'm just not seeing it.
I don't. Truthfully, I didn't do the posting before this meeting. That was the first attempt with Katie. I think we usually do a public packet and then a confidential packet.
I don't see the public packet.
Let me look.
And now I just lost it. Oh, hold on, let me pull it back up. Maybe.
I see the agenda, but we may be missing something there.
Yeah, we're missing your report and the water report. Can you email those to me?
I'll do it right now.
Thanks, because I'm going to need them if I write a report for the paper.
Yeah.
Otherwise, God knows what I'll come up with if I don't have.
You do a pretty darn good job.
Now, if I have to write the numbers down, then I can't read my handwriting afterwards. You speak too fast for that. I need the stuff that's on paper. But thank you. I try.
You do.
But I do have certain limitations. Like I can't do shorthand. My boss is I'm not capable.
But that is going to actually, that's one of our items for discussion tonight, sort of trying to come up with a policy or better direction as to what we will post on a regular basis. We're trying to get some more financial documents on there.
So, and you're also you're approving the audit today, but it's not on there yet either, right?
No, because it's still in draft form. Once they vote to approve it, it would be posted tomorrow.
Okay. Hello, Harold. How are you?
I'm fine, Michelle. How are you?
Well, today's a sad day in America. So
yes, it is 500,000.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking about that.
Yep. Yeah, it's incredible. Just incredible.
Yeah. So you got your second shot, right?
I did.
Good. Yeah. We haven't had any yet. We're still waiting. We're hoping soon.
Well, I have reached the ripe old age where I'm eligible. So
well, yeah.
In some ways, I think I'd rather be in your position.
Anyway, it is what it is.
That is true. That is.
We can hope for better times ahead. It sounds like, what do you guys think the chances of going back to in-person meetings would be by the end of the year, do you think?
Well, I sure hope so.
Yeah. It's all going to depend upon the pandemic and what is happening here in our community.
Yeah. Do you guys think you'll stick with the 5 o'clock format, or because it's kind of the dinner hour, or we
It's
move
an
it back to
interesting,
the 7 p.m. that it was before?
yeah, that's an interesting question. It's one that the board is going to have to revisit before we go back to in-person meetings. I think that this time worked well with the Zoom meetings because most people are able to get to a Zoom, I think. Hopefully that is the case.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it had to do also with the length of our meetings. When we were having, 3+ hour meetings that started at 7, that was really pushing some people's ability to focus.
Yes, it was. Yeah, hopefully those days are in the rearview mirror for a long time.
Yeah. I'd make a smart ass remark, but I noticed you're recording, so I won't. No jokes coming from me today.
Well, just remember what you say is going to be there for posterity. You may be saying something that you'll want to have be able to come back to in many years.
Yeah, most of the time my jokes are very topical and they don't wear well.
Okay. Hi, Katie. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you, Harold?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Terrific.
And I see our friend Don Potash is here. Welcome, Don.
Thank you, Harold.
Or Dan, rather. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
That phone call I just received was Tina. Some technical difficulties logging in, but hopefully she'll be able to get on here in a minute.
Please. Oh, there, Denick. How are you?
I'm good, Harold. How are you doing?
Doing okay. And here's Christina. How are we doing time-wise here? Still a couple.
What was that? Did I turn it off?
No, we're still here and we can hear you.
Okay, thanks. Got to talk to myself a little bit, Ryan.
No problem. Is that Steve?
Yep,
How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing well, thank you. Hope everybody else is too.
Yeah, glad you
Yep.
could join us tonight.
Yes, thanks.
Well, we do have a quorum, but I'm going to give us a couple more minutes to see if we can't have a few more board members log in here. Ryan, do you know if Jim and Maggie are going to be able to make it?
Jim, I believe, should be here. He called me at 4:00, ready to go, and I told him call back in an hour. So he should be. And Maggie, I haven't heard anything from. She would or would not be attending. I can give them both a phone call if you like.
Yeah, why don't you, I'd like to get the meeting started.
Okay.
Looks like Jim is here.
Hey, Harold.
Hey, Jim. How you doing?
Doing great. How are y'all?
Doing just fine.
Excellent.
Ryan's trying to contact Maggie and we'll give her a minute or two before we start the minute
Okay,
or start the meeting.
good deal. Thanks.
No
Okay.
answer. I left him.
Okay, that's fine, Ryan. We're gonna go ahead and start. It's by my watch, 5 minutes after 7, or after 5 rather, I'm sorry. And so I'm gonna call the Mendocino Community Services District meeting of Monday, February the 22nd, 2021 to order. And welcome, everybody. Does anybody have any comments or issues with the agenda that they'd like to bring up at this point?
Yes,
Yeah, Denny.
and I don't know quite what the process is for adding something to the agenda, but I think they're perhaps under new business.
The agenda cannot be added to once it's been posted. This is a Brown Act meeting and we are not in a position to be able to add. Now, you may be able to speak to something during your comments from board members.
Okay, then I will do that. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on the agenda that anybody would like to comment on?
I would like to add to that before. I have a feeling I know what Denick was referencing. And after speaking to Jim Jackson today regarding potential plant projects, I was going to request that the board discuss and potentially vote on approval for the purchase of some materials in excess of $2,500, but I'm not ready for that. So I think it's sort of a moot point.
Yeah, and we would not be able to vote on anything that was not on the agenda to begin with. That would be a violation of the Brown Act.
There was something in our Brown Act training that if all 5 members vote at the beginning of the meeting to amend the agenda and add to it, but we don't need to go there.
I think you have to have an emergency or some, very critical issue that you would need to deal with to do that.
Well, it's unnecessary. So it's a
Yeah,
moot point.
okay. Appreciate it. So I'd like to then move on to item number 3, public comment. And this is the time for anybody from the public who would wish to speak to the board about any item that is not on the agenda. Agenda items, the public will be able to offer their comments when those items are brought up. This is an opportunity to talk to us about things that you may have in mind that are not on this agenda. Do I have any public comment? Okay, hearing none. I think we'll move on then to item 4 on the agenda, communications. Ryan, do we have any communications of note?
I have not received any communications that I'm aware of.
Okay, that makes the agenda go by a little fast. So now we're at item 5, the financial reports. Let's see, we have a financial update from KMC.
Okay, good evening. So you've been provided a report for the period end of January 31st, 2021. I'm going to start with the balance sheet, which is the first report just past the disbursements approval. The bank accounts have a net change as compared to the prior month are up. Operating account is up by 56,000 with an ending balance of 330,877. And the construction fund account is up by $9,000, ending balance 15,811. Including petty cash and savings, we have a total cash position of $349,725. Accounts receivable is currently at $45,560. It's up by $20,000 month over month. Past due is currently $7,602 or 17% of the total open receivables. And we have a higher balance because January is a quarter end billing. We bill both commercial and residential. So the actual turn rate is improved drastically on a quarter end, because if you look at the income statement we billed out for January, flip to the page, excuse me, we billed out 116,000 versus December's invoicing of 43,000. So we're up by 73,000, yet we've already collected the money in and we're sitting at 45,000. So it's a very good position historically as compared to how you've collected your funds. On the investment accounts, the LAIF investment account will be reconciled again at quarter end on March 31st. We'll have a statement in on that. And then from there, we'll be able to go monthly. We have it set up with Katie to pull the statements for us. So we will see a jump in for 3 months of interest income in March. Current balance on the LAIF investment is $469,107. Undeposited funds is a minor account, it's $153. That's transfer, that's deposits in transit. In other words, they've been posted in the books, but they haven't quite made it to the bank. So the fixed assets, we have no change. So we have deferred inflows, which is an audit adjustment that's done through the auditor, and it's been on there for 2 years, $73,000. Total assets of $7,624,656. Onto the liabilities, accounts payable is currently sitting at $57,863, of which, give me a second, 31,000 of that is for SHN consulting of the 57,000, and the balances with the other accounts is either legal or minor operating expenses for the month. Bank of America has a balance on the credit card of $1,554. Most of that is training dollars. I believe that's for Katie, that she's doing some training for in the office and with software. And then getting into the current liabilities, those are your notes. And we do not have a statement to support. These notes are unchanged and the accrued vacation is done annually. But the USDA note payable is currently at principal balance of $2,101,000, and there's been no change since compared to December of last month. Total asset, or excuse me, total liabilities and the net equity position of $7,624,656. On to the income and expenses for the month of January. As I stated earlier, operating revenue was up because it's a quarter end billing on January 1st, and that includes both commercial and residential. So we did a billing of $116,401,000 as compared to December at $43,025. So that brought the income up by $73,000. However, in December, we did collect the general property tax payment of $58,540, which again contributed to a stronger cash position. In expenses for the month of January, we had $46,223 for the entire month as compared to December of $40,688. Expenses were up by $5,535. Overall, in the different categories, they are down with exception to the treatment. And the treatment section that was up had to do with some repair work. And Ryan can speak to the invoices. They were from Mendy's. if you have questions on those, but they were for facilities repair and treatment. So we have a net profit for the month of January at $64,326. I did forget to mention one step up, we did have an interest expense for the USDA loan of $5,852. Are there any questions on the financials for January? Okay, so for the total disbursements for the month of January that you'll be approving today or requesting to approve is $39,745.38. That includes checks, direct deposits for payroll, as well as ACH payments. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Christine. So on the on this approval of the distribution of funds, that's the form that was early on in Christine's report that'll be waiting for us at the office. But we do need to take a vote on the approval and of the financial report as well as the disbursement of funds. So could I have a motion for that?
I will move. Thank you.
Okay, is your motion to approve the disbursement of funds and the
Yes.
financial report?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Is
And
there a
I'll,
second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you very much, Jim. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. Actually, Katie, I'd like to establish the practice of you taking and recording the vote, if you would.
Sure. So just bear with me. Harold, is it that I say all those in favor and then all those opposed?
No, we're going to have to take a vote by individual because we're on Zoom. So if you would take the board members in alphabetical order and just ask for their vote, that would be easy.
Alphabetical order? You're asking for a lot right now, Harold. Oh my gosh. All right.
Well, whatever order you want to take, as long as we get all five.
Sorry, it's, all right. Tina. What's your vote? Aye. Hold on. Bear with me, Harold. What's your vote?
Yep.
Okay.
My vote is aye.
Okay. Denick.
Yes.
Maggie.
Aye.
And Jim.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Katie.
Sure.
All right, so that concludes then the financial report. Item B of the financial report is what we've just done, I guess, approve the district disbursement of expenditures. And we are now moving on to item C, which is discussion and possible action to approve the 2020 audit. And I understand we do have the auditor here. Is that?
Yep, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Blake Gornson, for those of you who don't know me. A couple of familiar faces, but a lot of new ones as well. And I'm with Gornson and Associates, and we are your auditors. And tonight, it's a weird world, but I'm here to present the audit over Zoom. Overall, the audit went really well, and we definitely asked a lot. There's been a lot of changes in the district in the last year, and we asked a lot out of both Ryan and Christine and her team to really help us make it happen. And I think Katie even had a part at towards the end in getting us all the documentation. But we were able to do a remote audit. Everything, all the documentation that we needed was there, and we were able to file the state controller's report on time, which was our biggest concern. Tonight here, I just thought I would kind of talk about a couple of big topics from the audit that I thought were important, some major changes, and see if anyone had any questions for me. We are presenting an unmodified audit opinion, which just means there were no noted significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. some of the biggest changes that we saw have to do with our big project, right? We put a lot of work into our project this year, and we got our USDA loan was funded right at the end of the fiscal year. So we saw some major increases in the capital assets and our note payable section, as well as in our cash, as we had timing of when money comes in versus money goes out. Because of the work that was done, we also saw a major increase in our accounts payable. But again, that's just the timing of when our bills get paid. One thing that was done this year by CalPERS, and it's funny that Christine mentioned, our 73,000 deferred inflow increased both on the deferred inflow and deferred outflow side because CalPERS reevaluated where we are. So it increased our net pension liability by about $200,000. This is something that they do they do smaller amounts on a year-to-year basis, and then we've noted that when they have major changes in their investment cycle is where we see the big increases happen with our clients.
Could I ask a question here?
Yeah, please do.
Is that $73,000 going to continue? I noticed it's been carried forward for a couple of years. Will that continue being carried forward, or how is that going to be reconciled at some point?
So we reconcile when CalPERS changes the figure. So this year with the audit, we're proposing journal entries that will increase it to about $300,000.
So it'll go from 73 to 300,000?
To $300,000, and it's corresponding with the deferred inflow and the deferred outflow for the net pension liability. And what CalPERS does is they reevaluate based on how long they think the projected life is, right? It's a defined benefit plan. So whatever that looks like to get the people who are involved on the CalPERS benefit plan, from past and for future, how much they need per month, and they reevaluate it. So even you guys are just a small little piece of it, but they had a major reevaluation between the year ending 19 and 20. The even kind of more confusing item, I think, is they're a year behind us. So our valuation is actually, as you go deeper into the audit, you'll note it's dated 6/30/2019. So they are a year in lag behind us because they're doing an actuarial valuation.
So in terms of looking at the district's cash flow and financial position going forward, 73 to 300,000 is a
chunk
of money. Is that something we're going to have to account for on a year-to-year basis of raising that difference?
No, so what they do is they bill you on a year-to-year basis. And I've seen other districts try to pay it off because they no longer had personnel, and then they were hit with another valuation because of the idea of the defined benefit. There's no way to ever pay it off. So what happens is in summer, usually I think around June, July, and Christine might know better dates, they'll send you a notice, kind of like an invoice for the unaccrued liability, and that's what we pay towards that. So we just chunk it every year.
Okay,
Harold,
Harold,
if I could make a comment here, because this is something I know a little bit about.
Okay.
I think CalPERS has two approaches to this. One is an assumed rate of return going forward. And, there has been downward pressure on that. And when you assume you're going to make more on the investment side, that means that the liability goes up over the long term. The second issue has to do with actuarial assumptions about longevity, how long people are going to be living, if you will, and collecting a pension. And that likely, I know that changes from time to time, but there may have been a significant bump in that recently, which could cause this big change. And I think
that's what I might.
It doesn't mean that you suddenly owe 300,000+ in 1 year.
No,
right?
It does not mean that. Your payments are similar if you were to go look over the last couple of years. So this started in 6/30/2015, I believe. So if you were to go look at the last 5 years, let's say, your payments are going to be similar. They're going to be a percentage of the total amount that's due. They're never going to ask you to pay that $300. As far as I know, thus far, they don't ask you to pay that $300,000 because even if you pay it off, then they just reevaluate you because they do the big evaluations every a handful of years to determine what people's, future life looks like.
Okay, well.
And I would assume that you wouldn't see big jumps in the total amount going forward.
The only time we've seen it jump this much was when they first started the GASB 68 and they did the first valuation. So I don't think it's realistic for them to jump that much on an annual basis. I mean, it's just impossible to cash flow wise, and they have not done that thus far up until now. We're about 5 years in.
So this is, you're saying this is kind of an anomaly that we probably don't have to spend a lot of time worrying about, is kind of what I'm
No,
gathering.
at this
from what-
at this point, and we work with different kinds of special districts, and we have a couple of fire districts in particular that are trying to navigate what this CalPERS looks like to get, they have larger liabilities, and there's no way to pay it off. The only time I've seen it jump this high, like I mentioned, was about 2 years ago when I did have a special fire district try to pay off the entire liability because they were, they merged with someone else. They have no more employees. And CalPERS was like, huh, you're funny. Here's like what it's going to be going forward. So it's something that you don't necessarily, I mean, we want to pay attention to it, but they tell us what we need, the chunk that we need to pay on an annual basis, in addition to our normal monthly payments to
Okay.
satisfy that.
All right. Thank you for that explanation.
I
Yeah,
had a
of course.
question, Harold.
Yes,
On page 9 of your report, you indicate that the net liability for pensions increased from 269,000 to 446,000. What does that mean in terms of the district's liability?
So that's for the deferred outflow. So the district's liability for the deferred outflow is currently at June 30, 2020, $446,977. The deferred inflow and the deferred outflow net together show what the actual cash that would have to be paid. So that 446 less 303, let's see if I can do this in my head, would be about 143,000 is the liability that's due, that is outstanding when you net the inflow and the outflow together.
And when does that liability have to be paid?
It gets paid in small amounts on an annual basis. The CalPERS sends an invoice, which they send an invoice particular percentage. In the summer, it usually gets paid in July of the new fiscal year. So the start of the fiscal year, every single year.
Hi, Blake. Can I add to this just to help
Yes.
out some clarity? We already pay a monthly unfunded liability. If you look on the profit and loss, there's an unfunded liability expense account. Currently, we're paying $2,190.95 in addition to our regular contributions into the pension. That's to make up for our assumed shortfall. Every year, they recalculate that based on the calculations that Blake is speaking of and reset it. And the year prior, the fiscal year 630, it's 1 year further back, but 18 to 19, we were paying $3,832. So actually we went down to 2,190, but now she's speaking of a step up. So we're going to see that monthly amount of 2,190, this next renewal in July, it's going to jump and it's probably going to be closer to $4,500, it sounds like, per month.
Yeah. And they give you the option to pay monthly or to pay in a
Yes.
year in advance.
Does that
Okay.
help?
yes, it does. Thank you.
Well, the only thing I'm curious about is what the basis of the increase is.
They
So
base
it's-
it on the return of investment, the lives of the people that are expected to live. It's multiple calculations on how long the people are expected to survive and collect these pensions, and how well the stock market is doing on the return to be able to support that return. And based on their calculations, any shortfall comes back into these calculations, and therefore we pay an unfunded liability payment monthly to them.
Okay, and that $103,000 you're talking about, will that have to be paid in 1 year?
No,
Okay, over what period of time is that paid?
they keep adjusting it every year.
Yeah, it's in perpetuity. That amount is the amount that was at that moment in time. So if we were to go see what it is at this moment in time, it would be different even than that.
Okay,
They reevaluate the payments on an annual basis in July, and you can pay either once for annual or monthly, which is what this district does. And that's kind of in perpetuity. We would expect to have some sort of unfunded accrued liability unless the stock market changes and pays for everything, which I don't see happening.
okay, so it's something that we have to worry about in the next year.
No. It's something that it's important to kind of have a kind of general concept and to know what it is, but it's not anything that we need to kind of cut a check for today.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Kind of moving on, overall, the district had, you guys are pretty consistent on a year-to-year basis. We did see some changes in personnel. So we had a major increase in the personnel expenses just to, as we saw the transition last spring, and that's our biggest change in expenses. Income stays pretty consistent on an annual basis. And so for budgeting purposes, as an auditor, I don't like surprises, so I'm okay with that. My favorite statement is the statement of cash flows, because income and expenses are great, but if we don't have cash, it does not matter. One thing the district is really good at is operations paying for themselves. This year, operations brought in cash that was about $100,000 higher than last year. Granted, we did a lot of capital asset work, and we had a major change in our investments. And with the new borrowings, our net change in cash ended up being about $162,000 increased, which are a combination of several items you can see on page 13. Most of the statements that I read from are the full accrual statements. As a special district, we also have to report the governmental funds, which are not in full accrual. And so I didn't want to spend much time on them. The budget to actual is, income is right spot on. Definitely the changes that we saw were for the better and immaterial. The expenditures ended up coming in, our budget was much lower than we anticipated it because we got a lot done in that project that we're trying to finish up. And we saw about an increase of about $1.4 million there. One of the new footnotes that I wanted to point out is we did add the new note payable, which is on footnote 2, page 26, if anyone wanted to refer it. It just kind of describes what the USDA note payable terms look like, what the payments look like going forward. And the another new footnote that we saw that we added just based on this world that we lived in is we updated our subsequent event footnote just to show that we're living in this pandemic. The district is doing okay, but we don't know what it looks like in 1 to 5 years. 1 to 5 years, we aren't sure what that's going to look like. And so it just kind of says, hey, we're living in this COVID-19 world. It could have a material effect. We don't know what it looks like. And other than that, I think that that pretty much sums up the major points, unless anyone has any specific questions.
Any comments from anybody?
I gather, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Denny.
I gather from your comments that there weren't any surprises.
No, there weren't any surprises. And it wasn't even, the only things that were new really were the USDA loan, which was in process when we were there last year. So we knew it was coming, it's just the timing. And then you guys did a lot of work on that project. Got a lot done. So that was, no, they're not surprises per se, it's just differences.
That kind of brings up a question that I have. I was wondering if you might have any suggestions as, look, you've now looked at our organization for the last 3 years, I think. And going forward, do you have any budgeting suggestions that you could offer us that might help us be a little more active or proactive in our activities?
I think the only thing is making sure that, especially when you're working on special capital asset projects, that you budget for them appropriately. And it's hard because it's going to be out of your normal operating budget, right? We got that USDA loan to help us pay for these expenditures. So it's almost going to be below the bottom line. But as part of the audit, we have to contain, it's all in one kind of full, when you combine all the whole district together in the different funds, it's just important to make sure that you are aware of that. Overall, your income is pretty similar year to year. Your expenses outside of the projects are pretty similar year to year, with the exception of the change in personnel last year, which always, when people leave, and especially when 2 big people leave, that's going to cost us a little bit more money. I would say kind of this year is more going to be your new normal. I know that it took a little bit of time to find Katie. And so, the next fiscal year will probably be like what normal might look like. But I think where you guys see your big differences is in your capital assets, because, one, you're working on this project that costs a lot, but also if you have to make a repair, it's not like it just costs $500. And so that's where I would make sure that you have an appropriate capital asset budget.
Okay. And would you recommend that we base that capital asset budget on some kind of a longevity of the assets as they're identified?
Yeah, so two different ones, right? We have a capital asset budget for this new project. That's just kind of like what we anticipate might have to be done. And that's something that probably has to be updated more than once a year, because you might think that you're going to get something done, and then, life happens, COVID happens, and then maybe you don't, or vice versa. And versus the repairs and maintenance side of things are going to be assets that we can say, hey, this asset we purchased here in 2013, we know that in 2020 it's going to need $10,000 worth of repairs, so we can start building up that kind of reserve so that we have a capital asset budget that is based on something, because your capital asset budget isn't going to be paid for solely out of operations.
No, we've got to accumulate reserves to
Exactly.
to address
Reserves, and then things like the loans that you pull out for the special project, or the new project. So, it's kind of something that's in conjunction with your regular budget, but also kind of different than your regular budget, because it's not just going to be looking at 1 year at a time.
Thank you, Blake. I appreciate your comments.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. If anyone has any follow-up comments after, Ryan and Christine both know how to get a hold of me as well.
All right. Give one last chance for questions to Blake. Otherwise, we will be moving on in the agenda to item number 6, new business.
So can I just ask sorry, Harold?
Yeah, sure.
This is labeled a preliminary draft.
Yes, I was gonna. So I would appreciate if we could have a board vote that will be in your minutes, because you have to formally approve the audit, and then we'll get you guys the final version.
Thank you for reminding me.
And Harold, I have a question for Ryan. How soon will assuming you guys approve the audit today, how soon will it be available on the website?
My office will get it to you, should be able to get it to you by the end of the week electronically.
Okay.
Does that work for you, Michelle? If it comes to me by the end of the week, I will post it the day I receive it.
I just wanted to be able to put in the article when people can go look at it. So I will let them know that they should be able to look at it by this weekend. Does that sound right to you guys?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me as well. I mean, the only missing link there would be Dave, our website manager. He usually posts stuff the day I send it to him, but I can't promise he will do that.
Okay, well, I'll try to make it look wiggly. Thanks.
I'd like to add that I'm a new board member, and I spent quite a bit of time reading your report, and I found it really informative and helpful to give me like a grounding of background information of what their operation was and what the financial was.
I really appreciate anyone who actually reads the whole thing. So thank you.
Yeah.
It's a long report.
It makes such wonderful nighttime reading, Blake.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you guys vote. I'm just going to assume that we're going to vote it in.
We're going to take assuming I can get a motion to approve the audit report and a second, we'll vote on it right now. Is
Okay,
there a
I
motion
move to approve the audit report.
Thank you.
And I can second that.
Thank you. Any discussion before I call for the vote? Katie, would you take the vote, please?
Sure. Okay, well, I have I have a formality question, since both Tina and Maggie no, I do still have to call them. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, you do.
So Tina.
Aye.
Harold.
Aye.
Denick.
Aye.
Maggie.
Aye.
And Jim.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, the audit report for last year has been approved. Thank you very much, Blake.
Thank you guys. Have a great night.
Thank you. Do the same. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Night.
Tim, did you have a question? Evidently not. Okay. Moving on to item 6, new business, discussion and possible action on public records to be published on the website. Ryan, do you want to introduce this one and we'll have some discussion about it?
Sure. Sort of what prompted this was Michelle's very good questions of what financial data are we going to be posting on the website? And that led to what should we publish? What are we required to publish? How much is too much? How much is not enough? And so it got me to work on a draft policy for what we should start putting up on a monthly basis. And I came to the conclusion with recommendation from legal counsel as well, that each month we should post the meeting agenda for our usual routine, the monthly groundwater management report, the superintendent's monthly report, the monthly district financial balance sheet, and the monthly district income and expenses sheet. And then also put a copy of that other records are available through the Public Requests Act, and what our policy is, or how people can go forward with making public records requests.
So as I understand what you're saying, Ryan, what we're going, in addition to the minutes, we will be including on our website posting the balance sheet and the income statement. Is that right?
Those are the two new items. Yeah. Previously, what we did is we did a public board packet that didn't include draft minutes or financial documents. But in an effort to increase our transparency in the community and help answer questions, I'd like to put more of that out.
Yeah, and these are the approved minutes and the approved financial report that we just approved tonight.
Correct.
And then the PRA request information, that's new as well. That's an addition.
We've always accepted public records requests, but this is going to lay out the policy and the steps of try and make it easier and put a link for a form. But yes.
But that would just be a page on the website that would lay out the policy for public records, right?
Correct.
Whereas the financial reports would be updated monthly.
Correct.
I have a question. So Ryan, you're saying that you would, after the meeting, once the meeting minutes are approved and the financial statements are approved, you would then, at some date after the next day or something, you would then put the minutes that were just approved and the financial statements that were just approved up on the web, but you would not put the draft minutes or the draft financial statements on the web. Is that correct?
Correct, until they've been approved.
All right.
Any comments or thoughts from any other board members or the public on this?
Yeah, I'd like to speak on it, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Just as enhanced public information on these meetings, can the recording of these meetings be part of the website so somebody could visit these meetings at any time in the future? We can on a lot of other agencies. So is that possible?
I'm not sure where we stand with the technology to do that. You know, obviously larger organizations have greater technical staff than we do. So I think that currently, I believe our meetings, Ryan, correct me if I'm incorrect here. If a person requests to hear a meeting, you make the recording available. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do everything within my power to make the recording available. To answer your question, Steve, I would have to talk with the webpage manager to see what's possible. In the past, some of the recordings were so large, I couldn't, I would attempt to download them and I couldn't send the link via email because it was too large, but I might be able to post the link.
Yes.
So I will look into how to do that and what's possible.
Yeah, just post a link. That would be great. Obviously, you don't have very many people attending these meetings. And it would be helpful probably to people that have questions. So,
Yeah, I
Thank
would
you.
definitely look into how to do that and
Okay.
if possible.
thank you.
Say, Ryan, wasn't there a cost associated with being able to record and keep a Zoom? Is that part of this equation?
That's true. We do pay a monthly service fee to Zoom and to Uber Conference. We had to increase that monthly fee to increase our level of cloud storage. So yeah, there is some cost involved in being able to store them in the cloud.
Do you-
So,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Could you come back next month with some clarity on the
Absolutely. Like I said,
cost and the feasibility?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Thanks.
don't know if this is of any help, but the counties, all of theirs are on YouTube. And I don't know if they pay for that or not, but just an FYI.
Yeah, the MHRB meetings can be found on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
and that may be a more effective way of posting the meetings than to put them on the website. I don't know. But Ryan, that may be something you could make a recommendation to the board next week or next
Yeah,
month.
we'll, like I said, we'll look into it and we'll bring a recommendation back to the board when we have some more information.
All right. So I think then we are ready to move on to item number C, discussion. Oh, we did the discussion on the scheduling of committee meetings.
Harold,
Yes.
excuse me, do we need to, are we, in terms of possible action on public records, is there a request from Ryan that we actually adopt this draft policy?
Well, Brian was going to
Or-
come to us next month, I thought, with a policy on this.
Oh, with the additional piece, okay, you're right, sorry. Okay. Thank you.
So we're under new business, item B now, and that is a discussion of the committee structure, I guess, that we have, and the scheduling of committee meetings and that kind of thing. And I'd just like to preface this discussion, if I may, with a couple of thoughts. Scheduling of committee meetings and the posting of committee meetings and the recording of the minutes for committee meetings is a pretty labor-intensive kind of activity for our relatively small staff. And I think that as I look at the function of the committees, it's really, the committees are there to consider and make recommendations to the board regarding the specific areas of their expertise or their concern. And I think that there may have been some, or there may be some, the Brown Act may be creating some thoughts or issues with how often we have to have committee meetings and what those committee meetings have to be about. And from what my understanding going back as far as I can go back is the committees met when they had a report that they wanted to create for the board's consideration. The members of the committee, if they were doing just research, if they were, wanting to talk to staff about items that at some point they might want to put into a report, they could do that without as long as only two board members talked among themselves and they didn't share with the other board members what they were talking about, they could have that discussion. And when it came time to put their thoughts to paper or put their ideas into a formal recommendation to be made to the board, then you would have a committee meeting in order for the public to be able to understand what the committee was in fact proposing to the board and what the and have an opportunity to weigh in on those proposals at that committee meeting. That's my understanding of how the committees have worked for not only our organization in past years, but also I think for many, many other ones. And with that, I'd just kind of like to open it up for general discussion.
Well, I can say I'm glad to see this was agendized because I have had some concerns about this and needed clarification. In fact, I contacted County Council, it's been about 2 weeks and I've not yet received benefit of a reply, but yeah, this has been confusing.
I can appreciate that, and I go with the from my perspective, I go back to what I've been told in all of the Brown Act trainings that I've been a part of, and that is that any two board members can talk about any subject they wish to talk about, as long as they don't talk to the other board members about that particular thing that they talked about. And since each committee is two board members, the committee members can talk about their committee subjects without having to have a formal meeting. When the committee, as I previously stated, reaches a point where they want to make a formal recommendation to the board to take action on the committee's deliberations, then you need to have a committee.
We don't have counsel on this call, right?
I don't believe we do.
No.
Is it possible to get, Ryan, is it possible to get something in writing from one of our attorneys so we have some, some clarity without spending tons of money?
Danik, what's your concern?
I would just like clarity on it, that's all. I'd like a legal opinion. No offense to anyone or to Harold, but
no offense taken.
I would
I think that we could get an opinion from our attorney on this issue, Ryan.
Absolutely. I'm happy to address it. If you want to send me an email first, specifically with what your exact question is for them.
I'd like to refer to the memo we got from Jim Jackson dated February 17th in the 4th paragraph. He said 2 board members can and should be able to get together and talk about ideas outside of the public meeting and present those ideas to the board at a later meting, which is consistent with Harold's saying,
okay.
Which is,
if it's already there, then that I'm satisfied.
And that's my understanding as well. And I think it's pretty straightforward. Like if I wanted to talk with Harold about something about the personnel committee, the 2 of us could talk and not talk to any other board members about that subject. And then we need to bring it before the whole board. We would do that.
Any other comments or discussions on this item?
No, but let me just say, if I do hear back from county council, that would have been Christian Curtis. And I hear otherwise, I will definitely.
Great.
I'll definitely, yeah, get this agendized again because there's been some conflicting information coming, and I think it's important that we do things correctly, total transparency.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak to this just for a minute. Does the public have access to these committee meetings at all?
when the meetings are held and agendized, yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
In fact, Mr. Gomes, we had one, the Plant Operations Committee met this morning for nearly 2.5 hours. There were no members of the public attending.
Yeah, I think that might be useful for a lot of people to know. And I know these recordings are going to be expensive, but everything that we can get out to the public is good information. So
I agree, yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, except for anything that's been in closed session, every committee meeting that I've participated in has been open to the public.
Okay, is there a link available for those meetings, or that's another issue for us?
There's a
find them
link available to the live meeting.
to the live meeting?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
just like the exact same as this meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't been receiving anything on, committee meetings, just this agendized for the this meeting and the groundwater management. I attended that meeting too.
Yeah, the other one, they're all posted on our website and in town, the same as if you'd like email notification, we can start notifying you.
Yeah, that wouldn't hurt for now. Maybe I can look myself later.
Okay. I'd like to then move on to item C, which was kind of a further discussion of committees, and that was, do we have the number of standing committees that we currently have when you have a standing committee, it is a committee that is subject to the Brown Act rules, whereas ad hoc committees are not subject to the Brown Act committees. Standing committees are in place to address specific things that are long-term in operation. Ad hoc committees can be formed to come up and address a situation as it arises. So in looking at our committee structure, Ryan, do you want to kind of review that and give your opinion in terms of what your thoughts are on the committee structure before the board talks?
Well, my initial thoughts sort of echoed on your previous statement that every committee meeting we hold, as our committees are now standing, requires an excessive amount of staff time. And my goal was to reduce that amount of staff time for committee members to still be able to meet, and then they share their discussions publicly at the regular board meeting or their proposals to the board. In reviewing it further and in discussions with legal counsel, since all of our committees seem to have standing jurisdiction over a particular area, they represent standing committees, and I don't know if we can change or should try and change any of them to ad hoc. What I would then request is that we try and only have committee meetings as absolutely necessary and on a less frequent basis.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Anybody's thoughts on this?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm thinking about maybe the board should direct these committees to meet on things that they're concerned with on their time schedule too, and maybe that would help lessen the amount of meetings and make them more productive.
I think, yeah, I agree. When something comes up, that the board can request a committee meeting to advise them. Sure, certainly. Thank you. Okay, I think we can move on from new business to item 7, and that is the district superintendent's report.
Okay, February 2020 superintendent's report. Wastewater treatment plant operators performed routine repair and maintenance at the wastewater treatment plant during February 2021. We had a couple of alarm call outs in the middle of the night for influent pump power failure and continued problems with our Main Street lift station. At this point in time, most of those appear to be resolved. the district is working with our engineers and the plant operations committee to develop a plan to address some of these issues moving forward. The superintendent completed and submitted the annual self-monitoring report for the state. That's a huge weight off my shoulders because that's a major report, and it's the first time I've had to complete it, but it's done. Recycled water. No transfers of recycled water were requested or made during January or February of 2021. Our biosolids trailer and transport. The Mendocino Coast Express safely hauled another load of biosolids to Novato this past month. Construction update. Construction is basically done. We are waiting on project final from the building department, a walkthrough with the engineers and contractors, some electrical safety training from Eaton, and a few punch list items, some touch-up painting, etc. It appears at this time there will be enough money left in the contingency fund to purchase a new to us service truck. As of this date, it looks like there's about $50,000 remaining. Safety meetings and plant safety inspection. The district is still following county, state, federal, and CDC guidelines regarding COVID-19 safety precautions. The safety officer conducted the monthly safety inspection of the plant, and the 30-minute monthly safety meeting was held February 17th, 2021, and the topic was bloodborne pathogens. Sanitary sewer overflows. There were no MCCSD collection sanitary sewer overflows to report during the January 1, 2020 through February 17th, 2021 time period. Collection system. MCCSD did receive a report of a small rabbit-sized hole or sinkhole on Evergreen Street near Pine Street. Upon investigation, we dug down about 4 feet and found a nickel-sized hole in the top of the pipe, an old clay sewer main that was allowing some of the surrounding sandy soil to slowly enter the main, which led to the cause of the hole. The main was patched and the hole was filled in. And that concludes the superintendent's report, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Ryan on this? All right. Hearing none, I guess we will move on to groundwater management.
No, we have a monthly secretary's report.
Oh, did I miss it? I did. Sorry, Katie.
That's okay. Hi, everybody. So for February of 2021, I'm happy to say that I'm getting situated here at MCCSD. There's a lot to learn, but I'm chugging along. I've been doing trainings with QuickBooks Online to get up to speed so that I can take over the billing in March, which is coming right up. I plan to also send home a form for everyone to update their information in our system. So updated phone numbers and email addresses. So that way we have, an updated system. I'm also going to send home a form, a survey asking customers about their well, which they may choose to return anonymously. We are also sending home an ACH form so that customers can pay via bank for a 1% charge rather than sending in a monthly check or a quarterly check. As Ryan just mentioned, we completed a safety training on bloodborne pathogens on February 17 with Ed and Keith, and we also completed a sexual harassment training at the beginning of the month. Thanks.
Thank you for your report. Any questions for Katie?
Yeah, I had a couple of comments. Katie, in the past, Jody would send us a reminder of when we needed to do our monthly reading. If
I've heard that.
do something like that again, because that's the only way I remember.
Yeah.
Another issue that I know that Jody had, and I don't know if you're going to have it, is that the information came in many different forms. Like I actually took a picture with my iPhone and sent it in, and before that I would do an email and say this is the number, but I screwed my number up a number of times, and Jody said don't do it that way anymore. So if we could have some help in terms of making sure we get that information to you in a timely fashion. And then in addition to that, I have no idea what these numbers mean. for how much my water use is monthly. And if I could get some type of if there could be some type of a system where I report my numbers and 2 weeks later or something, I get a report back and said, that meant that you used 210 gallons a day or whatever it is, so that I know how much water I'm using if I need to modify it.
Okay, thank you. The reminder is something that I have heard about quite a bit. And once I have an updated system, I'll be able to reach out to people more regularly and kind of make that part of my monthly things to accomplish. And as for the rest of it, I think between Ryan and I, hopefully we can come up with something to satisfy your
Right.
desire.
Ryan, help me understand, don't the meter readings that people submit record the gallons that they have used?
Correct.
So Maggie, when you're submitting your report, what you're submitting is the starting number and or the ending number for the month that you have just had. If you deduct the starting number from that, that'll give you your total usage. Does that make sense?
And then you can divide by the number of days in the month and find out your daily usage.
Yeah.
And if I recall correctly, Ryan, those instructions are on the MCCSD website somewhere.
I believe so. The challenging part is why we're hoping to improve the reminder system. The first step is updating our consumer contact list. With that, we need updated mailing address and email address and phone number from everyone, so we make sure we're sending reminders to the right place.
And is there a way in that reminder to, as Maggie was suggesting, provide the previous month's reading to the individual when you do the reminder? That way they have the number right there. Can you do that automatically, or is that something that would be
It
labor
takes a
intensive?
little bit of work on our end, but it's not out of the question.
Okay, well,
So on the meter reading, my screen froze for a couple of minutes there. For the meter reading, is it the last 4 digits or the last 5 digits that indicate the number of gallons that were used in the month?
Well, it's basically the number you recorded minus the previous month gives you your total usage for the month.
Got it.
And you
All
can
right.
use all the numbers, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
okay. Are we then ready to move on to the groundwater management?
I believe so, unless there's further questions. Okay,
And the ball game's yours.
all right. February 17th, 2020 groundwater management report. October 1st, 2020 was the beginning of the 2020-21 rain year. Annual precipitation in Mendocino is 39.72 inches. And average annual rainfall in February is 6.53 inches. 1.91 inches of rainfall had been measured in the district for the month of February as of February 17th, 2021. And I have a table below that reports that. Total rainfall for the year 2019-2020 was 20.43 inches, just 50.1% of normal annual rainfall during the last water year. By February 17th, 2021, total rainfall since October 1st, 2020 was 13.16 inches, just 47% of normal for the rain year to date, and 33% of normal for the entire year. According to the water shortage contingency plan adopted May 11th, 2020, the criteria presented in Table 3 should be used each year to determine the water shortage onset stage and modified appropriately if there is an existing water shortage, a drought from the previous year, according to the following criteria. If there's a pre-existing stage 1 water shortage, follow the water shortage condition criteria without modification. If there is a pre-existing stage 2 or 3 water shortage, modify the water shortage condition criteria recommendation for the appropriate date next to the next most severe water shortage condition. According to Table 3, current rainfall totals would place the district in a stage 2 water shortage as of January 31, 2021. A stage 2 water shortage is the current district position. Current rainfall totals combined with the 2019-2020 rain year ending in a pre-existing stage 2 water shortage would suggest that the district could move to a stage 3 water shortage after January 31, 2021. Depth to water. The average depth to water measurements district-wide in the 23 monitoring wells on February 16th, 2021 was 19.61 feet. It's about a 6-inch improvement on average from the January 20th, 2021 measurements. August 31st, 2020, the MCCSD board voted to rescind the rain-based stage 4 water shortage emergency and declare a stage 2 water shortage based on the water shortage contingency plan and depth to water measurements reported from the 5 drought monitoring wells. The average depth to water reported from the 5 drought monitoring wells on August 31, 2020 was 23.2 feet. On February 16th, 2021, those same 5 drought monitoring wells averaged 23.9 feet. And they're about 5 feet below where they should be for this time of year. 2020 was a very dry and unusual year. Following the water shortage contingency plan, rainfall totals on January 31st, 2021 indicate a stage 2 water shortage condition currently exists. The lack of rainfall last rain year would indicate a stage 3 water shortage currently exists. The March 31, 2021 is the next evaluation date. There is still potential for late winter and early spring rains. The superintendent recommends maintaining the current stage 2 water shortage through the March 31 evaluation date. And that concludes the groundwater management report. If there are any questions, I'm happy to address them.
Any comments from anybody or questions?
Well, Mr.
On this?
Chairman, it's Steve Gomes. I just managed to walk through my neighborhood, and out of about 8 properties right now, we have 5 absolute dry wells that have been dry for 5 and 6 months. Okay. My well, although it's not dry, normally would have 3 or 4 feet in it. Right now, it's down about a foot. I'm drafting air occasionally. You know, it depends on my use, and it depends on the day too. It seems to go up and down. So I still can't understand why depth to ground level water measurements are relevant. It's all based on gallons per minute for consumption as wells go. We don't have a basin here. The water runs off into the ocean. We'll continue to do that. You know, until we get 10 inches of rain, you have really no recharge in the system that stays there. And we had that groundwater committee meeting, which I thought we were going to get a report from them today. And during that meeting, it was kind of agreed a little bit that it's the durability and time that the water stays in these shallow ground sources that makes the difference between whether you have water or not. In 1996, you have a complete engineered report that has all the financials and all the design criteria that was available. And to my knowledge, nothing was ever done with that. But durable water supplies that do not rely on yearly rainfall from year to year is 3 miles away. And yeah, it's expensive. But like I was telling Ed O'Brien, there's nothing more expensive than your home without any water. So my request to them, and I thought would be brought up at this meeting, was the fact that the board would revisit those engineering reports and update the financials. You have the volumes of construction materials in them, and see what it really cost and see if the money's available. You have to want this as a community to even go search for money. I know most of the politician people stay away from it. You know, if you don't want it, why get involved?
For a minute, if I could interrupt you for a minute.
Go ahead.
They property owners that you're talking about, do they all have storage tanks?
They have tank, but no, I don't know that. I don't know what they have. I
Okay,
just
so-
know that they all have dry wells.
That every one of us should have a storage tank. Does your property have a storage tank?
No,
Well, that's where you start. Now, that's an investment about $1,000.
yeah, except that 1,400 gallons cost my neighbor $250 to.
If
No,
if
with
I-
a storage tank and a foot valve, it recharges or it fills the storage tank automatically.
From what?
So you don't need any deliveries.
From what? From a dry well?
Well,
If
These are
if I
dry
can interrupt
wells. There's no
if I can
water in these
interrupt
wells.
at this point, please.
Well-
This is not something that we're going to be able to debate in this meeting.
Okay, but when
I
can
understand
we?
your point, Mr. Gomes.
Okay.
And I appreciate your considerations and your thoughts. As the district goes forward over time, we will be looking at probably all of the issues that you are concerned about. And we're going to have to do that in a businesslike and as we can. But
Well, Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman, this has been going on for 30 years at least or more. I kind of requested that some kind of a ad hoc committee be able to meet with myself and go over many issues. I mean, some of it's even the legal authority of this district. I know you guys like to argue that it's all there, but that's not what we're finding. And the idea of that lawsuit was only a technicality is wrong. I mean, they threw out the whole. Now listen, I'm
Point of order.
going to finish this, please. Okay, one more minute. The
One more
idea
minute,
that
Mr.
this
Gomes.
lawsuit is gone is not true. It's been told until April. I want to get this solved. We have people with dry wells, and you're not solving the dry well issue with these ordinances you have. People have dry wells. One neighbor has actually abandoned her property for the last 5 months because she doesn't have any water. Something has to be done. I think the state of California is going to come in and enforce it.
okay.
This is a health issue.
Yeah.
thank you for your comments and your opinion, Mr. Gomes. I
Well, that's more
appreciate
than an opinion. It's facts.
it. All right, so any other comments regarding the groundwater management report that Ryan just finished? If not, we will move on to item 10, old business, and I don't believe we have any. So moving on to item 11, which is the consent agenda. And we have one item on the consent agenda, which is the approval. Actually, we have two items on the consent agenda, which are the approval of the January 25th meeting minutes and the December 16th meeting minutes.
Harold, what I would like to mention there, at the last meeting, this board voted to approve the December 16th minutes. And just as I was going to post them, I realized that I had entered the incorrect code for the closed session portion of the meeting, the government code that reflects the closed session. So I made that correction, but I would like the board to approve the minutes with the proper code, government section code for the closed session meeting. That's
Okay.
why they're back on there.
Well, I think if we approve the consent agenda, we will have approved both
Absolutely.
meeting minutes.
Absolutely. I just wanted people to be informed why that was on there again.
Okay, so at this point, I'd like to call for a motion to approve the consent agenda item number 11.
I motion
Harold,
to
I'll-
approve the minutes.
Okay. And I'll second that, Harold.
Okay, thank you, Jim. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Katie, would you call the vote, take the vote, please?
Yeah, sure. Tina?
Aye.
Sorry, my alphabet skills are really slacking at this
I'll
point.
I'll go next, Harold.
Forgive me.
That's all right. I vote yes.
And Derek votes
Thank-
yes.
And
And
Maggie,
Maggie votes yes.
thank you. And
And
Jeff.
Jim, yes.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. So we are now at item 12, discussion and possible action regarding any consent agenda items. Well, we didn't have any, so we're past 12. We are now at item 13, matters from board members. And this, Denica, I had mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that this may be the point where you might like to express your thoughts.
I think that Ryan had expressed his notion that he had some work to do on the issue that I was going to raise. So I think I'll let him do that and bring it up at a subsequent meeting.
All right.
Unless
Thank
you want to say anything now, Ryan.
Well, just the fact that I thought we had an informative and productive plant operations committee meeting this morning, and started working on both a short-term and a long-term projects list for the district, and some outlines and associated costs that I find useful, and I think the other board members might find interesting and useful too. As we move forward and I develop another draft or a more finalized
Right.
version, I'll be sharing that with the board.
Okay, and just to add to that, Ryan, I'm sorry, I thought you were going to talk just about the materials for the airflow pipe. Or
That's what I decided is
Yeah.
not worth discussion yet.
Okay, so just to add on, Ryan, regarding our plant operations committee meeting this morning, we met for 2.5 hours, as Tina said. Ryan had produced a very clear and helpful chart with the various projects, priorities, and other kinds of things. And I think we've asked him to do a little bit of work on that in terms of prioritizing and looking at short-term and long-term priorities, and come back to us. We'll be meeting on the 10th again, and hope to come back, all of us hope to come back to the board with some refined information and an opportunity for discussions about relative priorities and next steps. Is that fair? Anything to add, Tina or Ryan?
That was really well put. Yeah, it was an excellent meeting, very informative. It was recorded, so if any of you would like to learn more about your plant, I'm sure Ryan can supply you with recording or the link to the recording. Yeah, we have a lot of challenges in front of us as far as the plant goes, and it's going to require a lot of prudent thinking.
Well, I think that's what we can offer the board, right? Or the district rather, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I could get back to an earlier point, I'm not sure that we finished the discussion about adopting stage 2 before we were interrupted by Mr. Gomes.
Well, Ryan has recommended that we remain in stage 2, I believe, until the March 31st evaluation period is reached as specified in the water shortage contingency plan. Is
Does
that
that
right,
require
Ryan?
a motion?
No.
No, not if we're already in an existing stage 2.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
If we wanted to change it, we could, but I'm recommending no change at this time.
Okay, thank you. And I had a question about some enclosure in our packet, the governance guidelines. Was that put in here for a reason?
That had to do with the organization of our committees. And when we were talking
Okay,
about
fine.
should our committees be standing or ad hoc.
Great, okay, I understand.
And if I could just elaborate on that a little bit, Maggie, the governance guidelines and the Brown Act are really what determines the structures of our meetings. We have not adopted rules of order that, as you would, many organizations have, like organization rules of order and that kind of thing. So we had a discussion at the last board about potentially looking at that, and the board decided that I think that the existing procedures that we have are working, and they didn't really want to change anything.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think we've just had our, in addition to matters from boards, we just had our committee update.
Yes.
I apologize. I transitioned us into that a little prematurely.
Not a problem at all. It brings us to the happy item in the on the agenda. We're that much closer to dinner. So is there a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
I
Is
second.
there a second? Been
Okay.
moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Katie, we don't have to do a roll call on this one.
I feel like I could actually do it now, though. It's okay. I'm
Practice
trained
makes
for
perfect,
next
huh?
time. I'm trained for next time.
Why don't, I think we all want to adjourn. Why don't we do so?
Thank you,
Yeah.
Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
all.
Katie.
Thank you, Katie.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Ryan. Good talking with all of you.